Right. Good evening, dear colleagues. I suggest we slightly start. So, if you don't mind, in a couple of minutes we'll switch to Russian, because we are part of a BRICS. So, if you don't mind, we'll continue in Russian. Anyway, so please come closer, because it's quite big room. I think it will be comfortable for discussion to be here. And we have a small change in the order of presentations. So if you don't mind, because of some colleagues have to run for another meetings. Yesterday, our rector, Professor Kuzminov, said that we have more than 200 different sessions in our conference. Yeah, so it's a really important and influential international conference. Well, frankly, I think that our topic is one of the key from this perspective, because as we can see, there's a big geopolitical trend in raising BRICS, and I think that we should think of our personal future. I mean, we all are very different countries, but we have to think of potential areas of mutual beneficial communication in STI area, in cultural, in getting our societies closer. I guess it was about maybe 3 or 4 years ago in Brasilia. Maybe 3 years ago in Brasilia, we were talking about foresight for the whole union. And now I hope we'll try to realize this endeavor and this dream. Anyway, what we see and what we I hope will present during this session is rapid growth of future-oriented studies for us who are in the center of foresight studies. For sure, it's a good opportunity, because raising demand is always good, but the question is, are we ready for this demand, and can we satisfy it? And I hope that colleagues could provide some information about different methods and approaches, and dealing with big data as well, because we see, and yesterday Professor Kudrin, he's a professor of high school economics, also told us that digitalization is one of great trend, even in government structure and governmental structure. So we are moving to government 2.0, 2.01, 3.05, etc., etc. And the question is, will it be more efficient with our previous structures or not? Anyway, I hope that we could come to some general agenda during this session. So I'd like to pass the floor to my colleague Konstantin Fursov, but before that, please accept my apologies, because I have to moderate this session. I'll try to be as tough as possible to keep the timing. So we'll have just 15 minutes, and I'll use timer for everybody. Even I use it for myself.
Cards.
Yeah, after, like in a football. For Brazil, of course, we have always a joker, you see. But anyway, like in football, 5, 3, and 0. Zero doesn't mean that we push you out. But anyway, I hope that we'll keep on timing. I suggest that all questions will be after, all right? After presentation and common discussion. So now I start a timer for you, Konstantin. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's fine or I can speak a little bit louder. So we don't have a remote controller, so we are a little bit technology dependent, but still we have some opportunities to switch the slides. So yeah, I will take a second. Probably it's better. So thank you very much for this introduction and for this opportunity. It has always been a pleasure to speak with intelligent people within the framework of this conference. It's not my first time, and I'm always very much impressed with the quality of the speakers and the topics that are raised. Our study that I would like to say it's a kind of a sketch for the probably deeper understanding of how countries are developing in science and technology spheres. So we prepared this sketch with my colleague Maxim Kotzemir, who will continue the talk because I'm one of these persons who will have to leave because I have two speeches in parallel. So I will give an introduction to the topic and then give the floor to my colleague. So I will start with some foreword. So why we're talking about measurements, so why this is important and up to date. So since the I would say early '60s, people became fascinated with the quantification of science and scientific processes, and it was this initiative was supported by a very strong international collaboration and groups such as the OECD, UNESCO, and European Commission, and some other that allowed provision of certain quality standards for measurement and made it possible to compare data and to do some cross-national, cross-country comparisons. So why measuring? This is important because if you cannot catch it with the figures, you cannot do something with this. It's an arguable point, but still we need some formalization of certain processes, and at the same time it could be quite challenging if we are dealing with such a fuzzy and complicated topic as science and technology. So figures help us to get a better understanding on the returns of money we put into a certain domain. Then to get a better understanding how it functions and what are the key actors interacting to provide some new knowledge and how this new knowledge can affect the growth of economy. We can judge on certain policy regulations and certain initiatives that we use to govern this area. And finally, if we are not familiar with some specific phenomenon, we can get a first perception of it and its elements. Finally, we can compare organizations, sectors, and other actors that could be different, and finally do some forecasting, because in the end we need some predictions in order to understand how we will live in the future. The measurement starts in the context of a post-war belief and fascination with the science and technology opportunities and the importance of new technologies for economic growth. It was a true bloom of big science. It was no longer an initiative of some lonely enthusiasts. It became a new and pretty well organized industry, and this industry started consuming more and more resources. So therefore, it became important to understand how it functions and what are the outcomes and outputs. A lot has been done by the moment to formalize these processes, to formalize certain domains of measurement. These are so-called Frascati family of manuals that provide us with some guidance on measurement of different aspects of scientific and technological development. We have the oldest one, Frascati manual, after all this family is named, which provides us with recommendations on measurement of R&D. We also have some recommendations on measurement of human resources, innovations, and so on and so forth. Some new elements are being developed in the process. So we have some opportunities for the new and emerging technologies and some new growing sectors such as information society or biotechnology. Now we have some experiences in nanotech as well, and so on. But what is being measured? So what can we actually analyze with the help of these figures? We have pretty well established a framework for measuring R&D inputs, namely R&D personnel, R&D expenditures, some other facilities that are used for R&D performance. But we are still lacking the taxonomies and approaches to measure outputs. General recommendations provides us with some hints to look at innovation development, to look at some bibliometric and patent outputs, and so on. But in the end, these are all, let's say, general hints. There is no model yet developed to understand how the outputs can be put to the overall framework of analysis for scientific and technological development. We tried to do some analysis. We selected indicators in line with some basic recommendations we have at the international level. And here we listed some basic indicators we would like to suggest to look at first when we are trying to understand what is happening in BRICS countries. And here is the end of my first part, and I'm giving the floor to Maxim, who is the author of the figures and the calculations. So he's the best person to explain what you will see in the next slides with the figures.
Hello, the audience, and let me speak from my heart in English. So first is R&D intensity, gross expenditure on R&D as percentage of GDP. And here we can see the booming growth of this indicator in China. It's overcome EU28 level and closing the gap with the United States. Other BRICS country shows stagnation of these indicators. If we look onto absolute volume of R&D expenditure, we can see again booming growth in China and closing the gap to the USA, and we can see that China has a high volume of R&D expenditure and high growth rates, while other BRICS countries is seriously lags behind the China and the leader USA. Now go to personnel of R&D. Here is the dynamics of number of researchers in full-time equivalent. With China again the same situation, booming growth, closing the gap to European Union level. Russia has a slight decline of number of researchers, while other BRICS countries slow growth. And as a result, we can see as a result of investment of money, investment of human capital, we can see the same booming growth of publication activity in China. And closing the gap to the USA is even more stronger. The other countries like India shows quite serious growth. Russia shows growth in last times, but it loses its position. And China became great scientific superpower. We can see here where are the strengths and weaknesses of BRICS countries. China became the world leader on number of publications in many areas in chemistry, in chemical engineering, computer science, earth and planetary sciences, and so on. And we can notice that medical sciences, medicine, neurosciences, psychology, and health professions are weak sides of science in BRICS countries. Now compare structure of science of publications in BRICS countries. Okay, we can see that in Brazil, agriculture is a main field of R&D, research and development, and this field has a higher revealed comparative advantages index. In China, such situation is with engineering as well as in India. But again, medical sciences in many BRICS countries is weak side of their structure of publications. Here we can see the differences between BRICS structure, between thematic structure of publications in BRICS and in the world. So the higher is this indicator, the higher the differences, and we can see convergence of BRICS to the world. And but it's only Russia have strong differences with the world structure. Now look on to international scientific cooperation. China and India are close for international collaborations as many other countries, while South Africa shows the highest level of openness to international collaboration. Key scientific partner for BRICS is the USA for the last 2 decades. But on the other hand, other BRICS countries for Brazil, for Russia, and especially for China are not important scientific partners. Only for South Africa, BRICS partners are important. Here we can see the integral level of citation is field-weighted citation impact. We can compare these indicators cross time and cross discipline, and again BRICS countries in general show much lower level of citation than European Union or United States, but South Africa shows level of citation comparable to European Union level, and Russia and China show growing dynamics of these indicators over time. If we now do a brief outlook on patent activity indicators, here again China is the leader among the BRICS. So what we can do as summary, we can see rocket growth of R&D investments, of human resources involvement, and as a result scientific output in China. China is now the scientific superpower like the USA. Russia is something out of BRICS because its structure is not like in other BRICS countries. Its dynamics is stagnating while BRICS show growing dynamics, and we can see that BRICS countries in general converge toward global scientific agenda, or maybe on the other hand, BRICS countries became more and more influence on global scientific agenda. So we can maybe do more detailed analysis of structure of publication activity in BRICS to see how they can use their strong sites, their fields of specialty to collaborate with other BRICS and other non-BRICS countries. So here I'm open for your questions.
Okay, thank you, colleagues.
I was very fast.
Well, I think that that is a very interesting start because we see the landscape of different publications. The questions are still open now about the quality of the data and approach, and where do we see it? Are we sure that this data really shows the reality, what's happening in countries? But anyway, I think as an approach, it will be very important, and we'll have questions after all the presentations. So now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Anna and ask first a simple question. What should be the priorities of our cooperation? 15 minutes.
Окей. Добрый вечер, уважаемые коллеги. Если вы не возражаете, я на русском расскажу. Представлю сегодняшнюю презентацию. Сейчас, секунду. Эта презентация подготовлена мной совместно с моим коллегой Сергеем Анатольевичем Шашновым, посвящена вопросам отбора приоритетов научно-технологического развития стран БРИКС в поисках, так лучше слышать, да? В поисках взаимовыгодной стратегии. Во-первых, хотел бы поблагодарить коллег, выступивших передо мной, потому что они обрисовали ландшафт развития исследований и разработок в этих странах. Вот теперь нам бы хотелось понять, какие конкретно области являются ключевыми для этих 5 стран, где необходимо сосредоточить имеющиеся усилия. Сначала хотелось бы рассказать об общей схеме реализации этого проекта. Он состоит из нескольких этапов. Первый посвящен анализу всех доступных источников информации. Это прогнозные, стратегические, методические документы, библиометрические патентные базы данных. С учетом этих материалов готовятся базовые материалы, описывающие ключевые вызовы и задачи, стоящие перед этими 5 странами, а также их научно-технологический потенциал. И с учетом этих базовых материалов уже непосредственно отбираются научно-технологические приоритеты. Ну, а затем разрабатываются механизмы для их реализации. Данная работа выполняется в тесном сотрудничестве с экспертами из стран БРИКС. Здесь я хотела бы в первую очередь поблагодарить Маршию за его активную помощь со стороны Бразилии. Мы и в дальнейшем планируем активно привлекать экспертов к этой работе, в том числе специалистов по отдельным тематическим областям. Сейчас мы находимся в середине этого проекта, и я хотела бы представить ключевые результаты, которые были получены на данный момент. При отборе приоритетов мы ориентируемся в первую очередь на важнейшие научно-технологические области, которые способствуют решению научно-технологических и социально-экономических задач, стоящих перед странами БРИКС. В соответствии с этим мы используем следующую систему критериев. Это вклад в экономический рост, обеспечение технологической безопасности, решение социальных проблем и наличие потенциала для реализации соответствующих приоритетов. Приоритеты могут отбираться на разных уровнях. И здесь важно понимать, что приоритеты высокого уровня являются такими крупными лозунгами, которые не позволяют принимать какие-то конкретные, точечные решения. Поэтому данная работа позволяет отбирать приоритеты на разных уровнях, на уровне отдельных крупных направлений, так и на более низких уровнях тематических областей. В начале нашей работы мы проанализировали методические подходы к отбору приоритетов в странах БРИКС. Мы посмотрели, какие типы приоритетов отбираются, какие критерии используются, методы, информационные ресурсы, какие участники принимают участие в этих работах. И по итогам этого анализа можно сказать, что в принципе работы в странах БРИКС достаточно схожи по своей методологии. В основном используется методология Форсайта, экспертные методы, там, например, опросы Дельфи. На основе отобранных приоритетов в этих странах формируются стратегии, стратегические планы, которые потом реализуют соответственными ведомствами и министерствами, фондами. Отдельные страны также формируют дорожные карты для реализации своих приоритетов. Должна сказать, что в принципе, как и было показано в предыдущей презентации потенциал для сотрудничества стран БРИКС есть, и достаточно большой, но сейчас он реализуется в недостаточной степени. Если мы посмотрим на Китай, как одного из крупнейшего игрока в этом союзе, только 3% публикаций, опубликованных в международном соавторстве, были подготовлены с участием экспертов из стран БРИКС. Да, то есть Китай сейчас в наибольшей степени ориентирован на сотрудничество с другими странами. Для других стран этот показатель несколько больше. Для России, Бразилии, Индии это где-то порядка 8-10%. Для ЮАР порядка 15% публикаций международных готовится в соавторстве с учеными из БРИКС. При этом, надо сказать, за последнее время уровень кооперации между странами БРИКС все-таки увеличивается. Среди наиболее активных тематик, которые развиваются, можно назвать физику, медицинские науки, технические науки, сельское хозяйство, химию, биохимию, молекулярную биологию и ряд других. При этом можно сказать, что среди для стран БРИКС есть отдельные области заинтересованности в сотрудничестве друг с другом. Например, Россия традиционно сильна в развитии фундаментальных областей, таких как физика и астрономия, материаловедение, математика. И эти области могут представлять потенциальный интерес для других стран БРИКС. При этом медицинские науки в России развиваются не так, как активно и эффективно, и здесь уже России следует интенсифицировать кооперацию со странами БРИКС. Дальнейшим важным этапом нашей работы стало определение общих приоритетов стран БРИКС, которые, собственно, и задают рамку всего этого проекта. Для этого нами были проанализированы свыше 90 национальных и 20 двусторонних и многосторонних документов, на основе которых мы сформировали такую большую матрицу. Она показывает, что в принципе приоритеты стран БРИКС сформированы совершенно по-разному, они имеют разный уровень общности, и это объяснимо, потому что страны их формируют под себя, под свои конкретные задачи, но в целом надо сказать, что БРИКС движется в одном направлении, и нам есть где объединяться, где концентрировать свои усилия для получения максимальных результатов. И на основе этого анализа нами было выделено 14 ключевых общих приоритетов. Это, естественно, приоритеты общего уровня. Для них для каждого из этих приоритетов мы подготовили описание их состава. Это отдельные тематические области и технологические решения, входящие в их состав. Также нами была дана характеристика важнейших эффектов от их реализации и возможные сферы их практического применения. Также была дана оценка научно-технологического потенциала стран БРИКС в их развитии. И вот что можно сказать, анализируя эти области. С учетом этой информации нами были выделены наиболее перспективные области сотрудничества. Вот, например, в области информационно-коммуникационных технологий исследования в России ведутся не так активно, как в других странах. При этом есть отдельные области, где результаты российских исследований достаточно эффективны и востребованы другими странами. Например, это компьютерные науки, архитектуры, аппаратные средства, системной архитектуры. Например, в области энергоэффективности и энергетики Исследования ведутся достаточно активно, однако они не так эффективны по сравнению с другими странами БРИКС. И здесь нам стоит активно кооперироваться с другими странами. При этом стоит сказать, что ключевым партнером здесь, наверное, является все-таки Китай, как лидер этого союза из 5 стран. По областям специализации мы можем получить очень много позитивных эффектов при сотрудничестве с Бразилией, с Индией, по отдельным областям также с ЮАР. При этом, как я говорила, необходимо спускаться на уровень ниже, для того, чтобы понимать более конкретные точки приложения совместных усилий, для того, чтобы формировать конкретные тематики исследований и разработок и выявлять центры компетенции, которые могут стать потенциальными партнерами при развитии этих направлений. Ну и в завершении своей презентации хотела бы остановиться на том, как дальше мы будем реализовывать этот проект. Собственно, перед нами сейчас стоит задача непосредственно выбора конкретных приоритетов. Каждый из 14 общих приоритетов будет декомпозирован на уровень отдельных тематических областей, которые будут оценены с точки зрения их важности, с учетом их вклада в решение важнейших задач стран БРИКС и соответствия исследовательским фронтам, а также эти тематические области будут оценены с точки зрения их реализуемости в соответствии с имеющимся научно-технологическим потенциалом стран БРИКС. И на основании этих данных будет отобраны 3 типа приоритетов. Это приоритеты, где Россия заинтересована в сотрудничестве с БРИКС, где БРИКС заинтересован в сотрудничестве с Россией, и области взаимовыгодного сотрудничества. И, естественно, это 3 типа приоритетов потребуют совершенно разных механизмов их реализации. Также отдельно будут выделены те области, которые требуют преимущественно кооперации между научно-исследовательскими организациями в рамках развития технологий, или же потребует привлечения бизнес-сообщества уже для внедрения технологий, разработки опытных образцов. По итогам этой работы будет подготовлена дорожная карта развития сотрудничества России со странами БРИКС, где будут определены конкретные цели на средний и долгосрочный период, а также меры по их достижению, а также будут даны рекомендации по развитию действующих программ сотрудничества и по созданию новых программ. Спасибо большое за внимание.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important to understand not only the areas of our cooperation. It's extremely important to understand not only the areas of our cooperation, but a little bit maybe a single question: why do we need to cooperate? We have to answer it and to provide evidence of effects of our cooperation. So that's why I think it's extremely important to see, do we have, our countries, do we have our vision, our understanding of future, and then we could prove why we need to cooperate, because we want to build our own future and to build our common future. And I think it's very important input for policymakers. Let me give a floor to our big friend and colleague Marcio. What you're doing in Brazil is really great. That was great previous year, the year before, and I hope it's the greatest now. So the floor is yours. But sorry, just 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Do you need any help? This one. Right.
There you go. I'll probably stand up and relax a little bit because I have been sitting for quite a while now. not counting the time spending in the airports and planes, etc. And I'm not the only one. A number of people did exactly the same. But this may sound a little bit too much, but this is exactly what we are willing to do, to be a provider of intelligence services to the Brazilian STI system. We are not the only one. Let's start by saying that. There's a number of other institutions in Brazil trying to do the same in the area of science, technology, and innovation. But we were created to do the best that we can with a small group of people to provide this kind of services. And the key issue here is the word intelligence services. We were created in 2001 as a not-for-profit organization to conduct studies on STI, mainly linked to the competitiveness of a number of sectors of the Brazilian economy, but always looking to, at the same time, competitiveness as well as well-being of the Brazilian population. We have a very strong societal control. We are overseen by the Minister of Science and Technology, despite being a private institution. And we are subjected to the auditing system in Brazil. Size and budget, we are now 75 people. We were a little bit bigger than that. And we have an annual budget, around 20 million US dollars. It's not working? No? No, much better. $20 million per year to do the things that we do. Our strengths, expertise, identification, and mobilization. In conducting the studies in Brazil, at the level of CGE, we usually to have, discussing the themes which are considered important for the country, close to 2,000 experts per year. And last year we had 342 institutions coming from all parts of the country to contribute to priority setting, developing strategies, and so on. And doing foresight and evaluation studies is the things that we try to do better. But why should we have to develop an intelligence system or intelligence services? First, for the identification and mobilization of expertise. We are very lucky in terms of having well-structured databases in Brazil for quite a long time. My colleague has mentioned the LATS platform, which is composed by close to 5 million CVs, including some 400,000 to 500,000 researchers. So we know exactly where they are, what they are doing, and a number of the things that I'm going to show you later. To support technology transfer agreements, most users, I'm sure that this is not happening in Russia. I am sure. But sometimes you sit on the table, in our case, without knowing exactly what the others in the other side of the table have to offer. So being intelligent in this situation means beforehand, we know what we are willing to have and what the others offering something will probably put on the table. So this is extremely important in terms of transfer agreements and offset negotiations. Just to give you an example of that, Brazil, as you know, bought a number of aircraft from Sweden, the Gripen. So we were the ones doing, studies on the implications of that, what would be the implications for further utilization of those technologies in other fields, and so on. They're very small contracts, but extremely important in general. generation of subsidies for development and monitoring ICT, policies and large programs, and we heard from the morning this afternoon a number of interesting examples in Russia and outside Russia in terms of monitoring, which is extremely important. In the very beginning of our institution, we did a study. We said, well, this is important, this is important, this is important, but we didn't monitor. And now we see a growing capacity in terms of setting up observatories and monitoring system, which is, my point of view, the way to go. Creating awareness of for strategic issues among decision makers. It's very common when you talk to high-level people, they don't know exactly what's going on. They don't know exactly, being a decision maker is difficult. We have to realize that this is not an easy task for anyone in a complex world and number of issues which are, as we heard, complex as well. So being a decision maker, we have to be very sympathetic to decision makers because they have, to make decisions without having enough information to go to whatever direction. So creating awareness on the strategic issues is one of the key things that we try to do, and to strengthen strategic planning activities at institutional, country, and regional levels, monitoring technological development in a priority sector of the economy. We have been doing this for quite a long time for a number of sectors, but mainly for agriculture, space, and health, which are some of the key sectors we are trying to monitor and see which decisions must be taken in our behalf. So what it means being intelligent. If we say that we are performing intelligence services according to the appropriate literature, you have to follow this cycle. Trying to develop a shared vision, identify grand challenges. In our situation, developing our capacity in terms of observing what's going on the science, technology, and innovation side of it, develop a knowledge platform, and do it in a more systematic way. So that's what we are trying to do. And I'm going to give you, just because we don't have much time, an example of that. And the example is the one that came to us through an agency in Brazil, which is called CAPES, which is in charge of the whole number of graduate courses in Brazil, everywhere in the country. And the fundamental question that they presented to us was just that, very simple. What are the key strategic themes to be explored in the new National Graduation Program Research Agenda? Imagine that. No, we don't say no from the beginning. I mean, we try to say, yes, we know how to go about doing that. But this is a very difficult question to be answered from the beginning. What are the key strategic themes to be explored in the new National Graduation Program? Imagine Russia. If somebody in Russia says, come to Isaac and say, tell me what are the strategic issues to be considered in education at that level. Difficult, isn't it? Because it involves nearly 4,000 graduation courses divided by 9 grant areas and 49 evaluation areas. Close to 460,000 professors and advisors. Almost 80,000 students. So this is the question. What should they be doing in the future? So how to tackle this? It was only possible if you follow the cycle. And for our situation, taking advantage of having not only these ones, but key, very well curated databases. One of them being the LATS platform, managed by CNPq, the National Council for Science and Technology, nearly 5 million CVs. The Sucupira info platform, managed by CAPS, that contains all the programs, institutions, associated students and professors. The one maintained by the Minister of Labor that has whatever information in terms of formal jobs in the country, and the ability that we have to develop, to get primary information out of these actors through surveys, as you have as well. So, from the main outputs, well, first of all, we have to develop a process that will, in the end, answer what they should be doing. But the main outputs were a very dynamic map on the themes per evaluation area, a very dynamic map of semantic and co-authorship networks per evaluation area and associated metadata. Professional marketing session, because sometimes the question is, okay, fine, we are having 80,000 or 15,000, 20,000 students going out of the universities, and where are they working? What are they doing? Well, we believe that it's important for the agriculture. Are they going to agriculture or doing another thing? Are they working? Earning so much. So in terms of policy monitoring, this is extremely important. And I found very interesting your work on human resources, because we are very lucky having those databases, because we can easily, crossing this database, answer this kind of question, which is key in terms of our capabilities. And to finalize, let me give you some example of that. What you're seeing is not a static figure or picture. Because if I was supposed to produce a report on the outputs of the study, I would imagine this would probably comprise 100,000 pages, or even more. So my colleague was key in developing this tool, which is supposed to be available in the web someday, I don't know exactly when. This is a browser where you insert this information, and then you navigate. You navigate. In this situation, we have the evaluation area is history. The consultation that we have with the people presented to us 8,000 themes, which were very much related. But then, through the title and the description of the title, and you can see the descriptions as metadata in the web, you can see who is saying what and how similar the issues are, in order for the agency that contracted us to take decisions in terms of prioritizing the themes according to the beliefs of those coordinating the courses. And this is a picture of the engineering. So engineering in Brazil was actually managed in different, parts. So you see, you can see actually, because the red dots are students, the blue dots are professors, and you can see how they collaborate, how they get together in terms of tackling themes related to engineering. We did that for the grant areas, we did that for each one of the 49 evaluation areas as well. So the agency that's managing this, number of people, courses and themes, etc., you see how this is actually developing. And the moment you have new data, just put the data in the same process, and in the same browser, you're going to see the changes over time. It's again the same thing in the case of computing science. And see, the people a little bit more, they do collaborate, but they have a little bit more kind of a spreading, scattered sort of profile. And through the metadata, the moment you click in one of the dots, you're going to have the whole information about who's doing what, in which institution, and how many collaborators they have, what are the collaborators, who is doing what with whom, in general terms. And a picture like that. And it's interesting because in this situation, and in the case the area is dentistry, and there is a number of dentists, which are not collaborating to anyone. All the red dots are students that came out of the course on dentistry, but some of them are doing research together with their advisors in groups of people working more or less on the same fields. So, in the end of the day, we came up with a number of possibilities. I told you, these are only 4 or 5 examples. There are thousands of examples of the same thing. We are not saying, we're not telling the agency on what they should be doing, but we provide them a way of analyzing a huge amount of data in a more systematic way, in a more organized way, for them, together with the coordinator of the courses, to take intelligent and informed decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. Really very impressive. Very impressive. I think that you've touched a few very interesting and very important things. Yesterday we were talking with our colleagues that we see the changes in definitions. I mean, market, industry, what it is, how we can classify it. And in this case, we cannot use previous or standard classification. We need something more. Another interesting question that you raise is communication with different stakeholders. And for sure, such systems should provide a platform for communication. This is one of the functions of a foresight, but now we could enhance it by ICT technologies and new technologies. One question which is still actual for everybody who's trying to work with big data is the quality of this big data and your interpretation of results, which is also very important. But I think that our stakeholders are getting smarter and smarter. In this case, we need to be intelligent to keep the pace and to be still in high demand. And I'd like to give a floor to my colleague, Professor Ozdčan Saritas, who will present a start of a project with South Africa. Our colleagues from South Africa asked us to make a foresight for this country, and I hope that this could be an example, a good demonstration how foresight could get all stakeholders in the country together and provide a platform for mutual beneficial communication. So, Ozdčan, the floor is yours, so you have the same 15 minutes as everybody, please.
No longer, no shorter. Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, hello everyone. Thanks for staying until the end of the day for the very last presentation. So I will try to keep it brief and hopefully interesting for you as well. So, because we are talking about the BRICS countries, I think it's a good idea to have an overview of what we mean by BRICS. It may be very straightforward that actually the group of countries consists of 5 different countries from 5 different regions of the world. We see that actually they don't have in many ways much in common. So in terms of populations, we see a great diversity between countries. So Brazil and Russia over 100 million, and India and China over 100 billion now. and South Africa is less than 100 million. If we look at the GDP per capita, for example, we see the same diversity in here with Brazil and Russia showing some close figures, China and South Africa showing some close figures, and India GDP per capita is a little bit lower than that. And the growth rates are very diverse at the same time. So China is growing very fast among these countries, and then India is following very closely, and then we see Brazil, Africa, and Russia coming after that. Foreign direct investments these countries receive, we see that there are some variations there. So Brazil and Russia are receiving around the same amount of $80 billion of FDI inflows, whereas China is really outstanding among all those other countries with very, very high figures. And South Africa is really low amount of FDI inflow compared to the other countries, about 10% of Russia. Another probably indicator in terms of the level of development, level of industrial and social development is the CO2 emissions generated by these countries, CO2 emissions per capita. So we see that Russia is leading in here. That is because of probably the energy intensity of the country. And then after that, South Africa is one of the energy hubs, again in Africa. And China, India, and Brazil are following that. So we see that we are talking about a very diverse group of countries. But at the same time, we should see some commonalities between them too. First of all, what we see when we look at this group of countries is that they have faster growth rates than many of the developed countries in the world. So they are catching up very fast. And they are becoming the main driving forces for global economic development. So if we look at the sum of all these countries, actually, they are almost forming 1/3 of the global GDP now, which is a very high figure. In terms of population, they represent 42% of the world population, which is again indicating that these countries have a lot of human resources. And I'm not looking at population as a burden, but as a kind of potential source of everything, basically. Entrepreneurship, new ideas. That means they have 42% of brains, which we will discuss probably the importance of the brain later with Professor Onaral sitting there and waiting patiently for our discussions tomorrow. That is meaning that we have a lot of potentials for development. And they have a lot of natural resources at the same time. About 1/4, a quarter of the planet's land, for example, and having all the resources, natural resources associated to the size of this land. All of these countries, without exception, recognize the role of science, technology, and innovation. And science, technology, and innovation are considered as the instruments, as the key instruments to address these grand challenges, and at the same time achieve socioeconomic development. So there's no doubt in that. And when we look at their STI priorities, my colleagues actually presented earlier very nice tables in terms of showing priorities by each country. The common priorities between them are energy and natural resources, without doubt, water and ocean science, space exploration, geoscience, information and communication technologies, material science and nanotechnologies, biotechnologies, biomedicine, and neuroscience, among the others. So they are actually pretty much in line in terms of level of technological development and in terms of interest for new and emerging technologies. And also there's probably good news for us as researchers and practitioners of Foresight. Foresight has been acknowledged as an important policy instrument for developing long-term strategies and visions for these countries and setting priorities and policies and advice for those policies. So what do we mean by foresight? When we talk about foresight, actually, we are saying that foresight, as acknowledged as an important policy, STI policy making tool, is the medium to long-term future-oriented analysis. And here the future is considered as multiple, and the issues examined are going beyond the technical ones. So they involve multiple dimensions, including social, technological, economic, environmental, political, and cultural aspects. So Foresight is bringing all this in a kind of systemic manner. And they are informed by participative processes, so all these countries, and including other countries, practicing foresight to formulate policies, they bring all the experts and stakeholders together to build some evidence by using all these different tools, articulate possibilities for the future, and propose some actions. And stakeholders actually are also used to bring their wealth of experience from different areas. And then all this are fed into STI decision making and for the mobilization of actors to start the change process towards long-term vision. So after having this background on the BRICS countries and the foresight, so we have kind of a same level of understanding actually between these countries, we can take a closer look at South Africa. South Africa is the largest economy in Africa with about 50 million of population and with a considerably large area, although not as large as India, China, Brazil, or Russia. But it is a very rich country in terms of natural resources and cultural background. So there are 11 official languages, 11 official languages, probably very rare in any country in the world, including English, Afrikaans, and others. And they're very diverse in terms of religions, and as we see, life expectancy is considerably low. So it's about 53 years for men, 54 years for women, which is probably saying that we need to be more actually careful in terms of improving our environment, in terms of using our resources, in terms of health and health policies and equal access to these services. Like many other countries in here, we mentioned in the BRICS economies, South Africa has a national development plan also. And they are looking into the next 10 to 15 years, 2030. And then they have developed a national development plan, which has actually multiple dimensions. So, and the foresight exercise we'll be doing for South Africa will go beyond purely technical or technological issues also to meet the expectations of the country, because there are still important struggles in the country. For example, there's a need for equity and equality in the country, so there are still big gaps. And there's a need to promote active citizenry. Democracy needs to be settled. So first democratic elections were made in 1994. It's not a very long democratic history, so we see that actually there are still struggles on that way. And they need a faster economic growth, higher investment, and greater labor absorption. So all these actually are happening in a country which is very rich in terms of natural resources and in terms of human resources. So they would like to actually exploit at the same time all this by overcoming this kind of structural problems. And then would like to encourage strong leadership throughout the society. So if we look at the key areas identified, so they don't only include these technological or scientific areas, but also important issues like economy and employment, environmental sustainability, because at the moment the production of energy, for example, is very much done with great environmental burdens. So pollution is one of the biggest problems, for example, as most of the energy is created by coal. Inclusive rural economy and transforming human settlements, better education, fighting corruption, and building a nation basically with all these diverse backgrounds in terms of cultural and ethnic backgrounds, and how to bring this together to build a nation is one of the key points. So in order to support these goals in national development plans, there are some 10-year STI development agendas developed in the country. So there was a previous one till 2018, so from 2008 to 2018. Now, what we will do actually to organize the Foresight exercise to feed into this new science, technology, and innovation decadal plan, which will be from 2018 and 2030, with the aims of, from the science and technology, or science, technology, and innovation perspective, advanced capacity of national innovation system, enhance the country to generate some new knowledge and exploit this knowledge, and develop human capital, which is one of the key sources, again, for development, building infrastructure to support that, and positioning South Africa as a strategic international research and development partner in the world. So we saw already that there are great actually potentials for STI collaboration between many different countries in the world and within BRICS. And the specific objectives of the South African Foresight exercise include identifying key local and global drivers and trends. So we have actually developed lots of skills recently in terms of monitoring, identifying, and discussing the impacts of global trends and drivers. And then not only living there, but bringing this into the national innovation system, and then to understand actually how they may affect the country and how national innovation system of the country may respond to this, with its weaknesses, strengths, and also possibilities. So to identify opportunities and competitive advantages, and provide an understanding of what is being achieved, and then kind of making the evaluation, a kind of a previous, before we feed into the implementation plan, and then later identify those priorities, and then send them into the national development strategy, which will become then the part of the national development plan. And we suggest our Foresight methodology, basically, which we describe in detail in our recent publication, Foresight for Science, Technology, and Innovation. This is the 4STI process. So it becomes with an initiation phase, and then intelligence gathering, as Marcio mentioned, so gathering some kind of background information from a wide variety of sources. Imagination, which is about looking into the longer term future, and then building some visions, then articulating these visions and then integrating them to form a vision. So this is the integration phase. Then translating this vision into strategies, long, medium, and short-term strategies, which will then bring us to the intervention phase, where we will develop some policies and actions. Then, if it is desired, there's an impact assessment phase with the evaluation of the activities, and then starting with a new round of the Foresight exercise. And all this process will be undertaken within an interaction between all the stakeholders involved in the process. So Foresight is a participative process, so it should be inclusive, and we will actually ensure that this process is also inclusive by mapping stakeholders, nominating them, and then bringing them together in some working panels. So if we look at the, so there are a wide variety of methods we are using. So we will make sure that we are bringing qualitative and quantitative methods in this process, described in the 4-star methodology. So I have just highlighted here in different color codes showing which Foresight methods we will be using for which phase of the activity, including scoping, expert panels, and then big data and STI mining for intelligence gathering, and then developing some long-term scenarios, Delphi for prioritization, and then after that using some roadmaps for the strategy making, and then identifying some priorities and critical technologies to be implemented to support, again, those broader policies. So this is showing how each phase is planned and what the key outputs are. So the overall output is to feed into the next 10-year STI plan. So we will meanwhile achieve that all this information, all this vision, priorities are actually brought together with some evidence, expertise, creativity, and the synergy between all these actors, and policy options are set with some desirable scenarios for the future, and actions are defined for all actors of the national innovation system. So our contribution in this process is to build capacity, first of all, foresight capacity, because there's no established institutional foresight capacity in South Africa. So a few of us actually will go there and deliver a training course for foresight, and then give advice for design, implementation, and monitoring of this process, and then support with our tools and techniques as described by my colleagues earlier by using our, for example, intellectual data analytics system and road mapping system, among the others. So we will report about the results as we go through the process, possibly in the October conference. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Saritas. Очень I commended to go to your experts foresight platform, as well as other speakers are here. All are here. All right. So we have around 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and I'd like to open the floor for discussion and questions. But before that, let me ask you to introduce yourself. So please, any questions? We have a microphone. Any questions to the speakers, please? Sure.
I have very the short question for the first speakers. You mentioned that the number of articles has been decreasing for most of the country. However, the international collaboration looks like increasing. I want to know the reason for that.
Okay, please, Maxim, could you answer?
About what?
The articles. It seems the number of articles has been decreasing a little bit, but the international collaboration is increasing. How can you explain for that?
But the number of articles is also increased in all BRICS countries.
But the figures.
The number of authors.
Not number of authors.
Number of authors.
No, because I do not understand your question. You ask me why the number of articles decrease while international collaboration increase.
Yes.
But number of articles decrease in last years because of since the data are incomplete simply in this.
Yeah, because we have a very similar situation. Because the number of publication in Japan has been decreasing since 5 years ago. Okay, and also our number of scientists also a little bit decreasing, or maybe it's stable. So, but also the international collaboration also has been decreasing in Japan. So this is a different situation in Russia. I mean, BRICS countries.
BRICS in general show very fast-growing dynamics, and Russia shows the stagnation of number of publications nearly till 2014, stagnation of R&D expenditure in absolute level and in relative terms, and the same is in Japan. but in last years the situation in Russia changed. I think that simply it's need to, I can see more detailed analysis for Japan.
Okay.
To see if really international collaborative papers start to interchange the Japan or substitute purely Japanese papers.
Okay, because now we have many analytical equipment and of course experiment apparatus as well. So that's why we don't need to go outside of country because we can do everything by ourselves. This is the reason probably our international collaboration has been decreasing. But we are not sure. So that's why I was wondering, because now Chinese is everywhere, especially in the North America. However, since the immigration policy has been changed in United States, so probably this will be effect to the scientists, researchers, and also probably effect to the number of articles or international collaboration as well. So I was wondering what's going to be happened in BRICS countries for that policies. Do you understand my question?
Yeah. I think it's very important to go into details and see the reasons. So I've just read two interesting news I'd like to show to tell you, to show you. So the first was that Tesla passed General Motors by capitalization. They passed them. So Tesla is number one, and second, then Toshiba seems to be going bankrupt in Japan. So this also demonstrates how the world is changing rapidly. All right. So we have another question. So please, but before that, please introduce yourself. Yeah, пожалуйста. Вот вопрос.
У меня очень короткая реплика по поводу почему уменьшается.
Представьтесь, пожалуйста. Please introduce yourself.
Кафедра теории прав, Геренрод Борис Александрович, Вышка. Почему уменьшаются публикации, да?
Да.
Очень короткая. Знаменитый на весь мир наш математик Пантрягин говорил, что когда он пишет свою работу, он ее проверяет, потом переписывает, потом снова переписывает, потом 5-й раз переписывает, она уменьшается. Но и гонорары уменьшаются соответственно. Спасибо, у меня больше нет.
Да, коллеги, будем верить математикам. У нас еще вопрос. Да, пожалуйста.
I have a question for Marcio. Thank you a lot for presenting your very interesting system. My question is, do you plan to expand it and widen it and to include all participants of STI process in your system and to understand connections between, not only between between students, professors in education process, and also include other actors and to set connections between them.
Thank you very much, Anna. This is working? Yes, it's working. We don't have concrete plans to do that. One of the things that we are willing to do, and we are now debating a little bit how to go about doing it, is to support the National Council for Science and Technology with indicators on the evolution of key sector or thematic issues within the country. So this will certainly expand the scope of participants, either scientists, technologists, private sector, the academia, and so on and so forth. And one of the, that's an opportunity that I have to say to you, the people within HSE and ISAC, for the wonderful job you are doing in this regard. We actually are looking at the models you are developing and try to do a similar thing, but taking advantage in our situation to the databases that we have that would facilitate our job in a way. So the plans are, and this is inscripted in our in our strategic plan to provide this kind of monitoring on to where the science technology is actually going within the country. And as I said before, Anna, this will require amplifying the scope of actors within the system. Thank you.
Right, thanks. So we have a possibility for the last question. I see, I know there's a representative from a Minister of Agriculture here, so maybe we have a question. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a question for Marcio as well. So Andrew. So the question is, which exact areas of agriculture you see as prospective and promising for cooperation between Russia and Brazil? Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't get your name.
Andrei.
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for the question. Microphone. I don't have a concrete answer for that. The thing that I know is we did actually some, preliminary studies on potential collaboration in this regard. But in the case of Brazil, as you are seeing in the newspapers, either in Brazil or everywhere in the world, animal health is extremely important in terms of support exportation of products derived from agriculture as a whole. This is an amazingly important issue to be tackled. And if this is something to be developed together with Russian scientists or not, it's something to be explored. So far, we have been very active in this area with countries in the UK, the United States, as some of the data actually showed. But this is definitely an extremely important area for international collaboration. Because naturally, this is an issue to be tackled internationally. So the other area for collaboration is whatever you see important for mitigating or adapting the challenges of climate change. So drought is important, extremely important. High temperatures are extremely important in this regard. Again, if this is something that we have the comparative advantage to establish a concrete collaboration, is something to be seen. And the other key issue, which Brazil has been very active in the last, say, 15 years, is renewable energy as far as agriculture is concerned, in terms of developing new generations of biofuels, either from oils or sugarcane-based ethanol. So these are three very strategic areas that deserve international collaboration. I hope some of them will be developed together with Russian scientists and institutions as well.
Great, thanks a lot. So we are in schedule, and let me express my gratitude to everybody who was participating here, all our speakers and the auditory, to translators. I hope that we put another efficient brick in all our BRICS Foresight. Thanks a lot. Thank you.